You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA. You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA.
Hello and welcome to episode 426 of the fabulous Peltoncast, sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza. I'm your co-host, Kevin Pelton.
And I'm Tristan Carcino.
And we're coming to you in separate locations this week. I'm in Seattle, Washington, which is, technically speaking, home of the first place in the AL West, Seattle Mariners.
I think that somehow they're percentage points worse.
They are percentage points back.
So I'll give that to you, but...
I just mostly wanted to make the point how hilarious it is that this team is still in first place.
And I'm coming to you from Renton, Washington, home of the soon to be talked about a lot more because of those Mariners, Seattle Seahawks.
Super Bowl 48 champions, even.
Super Bowl 48 champion, yes.
Yeah, there was a cloudy day. There was cloudy day in Seattle, and all of a sudden, thoughts turned to football.
Oh, my thoughts turned to football way before then.
Fair. But I think that is going to be a theme of...
My thoughts turned to football at 9 p.m. last Thursday night when EA Sports College Football 25 returned. And I have spent 0 seconds doing anything else in my life. I'm exhausted. If I can't remember anything, if I'm slurring my words, it's all because of college football. And I'm thinking about the greatest setting in college football, Saturdays in the fall. Come on, people. They are right around the corner. I know you hate when I do this, but when you get around this time period, things get a little bit nipplier sometimes.
Get they at what?
Nippier.
This Christmas vacation?
And and all of a sudden you start thinking about fall Saturdays as you're playing college football literally nonstop, 24 hours a day, not sleeping. So I've been thinking about football a lot. And let me tell you what I have not been playing. MLB The Show or anything like that. Football time is here. Football time is here. I believe the Seahawks open training camp tomorrow as we're speaking.
That is accurate. By the time you listen to this, the Seahawks have probably conducted a full practice. But we will get to that later in the pod. Let's start out with this week's toasts. First off, a coaching heavy toast this week. First off, congrats to friend of the pod, Brent Barry, who is leaving a front office role with the Spurs to join the Phoenix Suns as an assistant coach under Mike Budenholzer. And you know what this is, right?
What is this?
This is prepping for him to be part of the Seattle Sonics coaching staff down the road.
Wow. You heard it first. Aggregate it. ESPN senior writer Kevin Pelton. I don't know. Nobody's listening is going to egg. It's just on the Discord. That's the only. By the way, if you're not on the Discord, what are you doing?
If you haven't joined the Discord specifically to register your displeasure with Tristan's U Village takes, or U District takes, I should say, his U Village takes have not yet been as controversial, then what are you doing?
The hello Robin. I think people generally agree about.
The pro, yeah, obviously.
Anyway, Brent Barry being primed, moving from the front office. You thought he would be the GM of the future Sonics? Hell no. Head coach of the future Sonics. That's the next Lenny Wilkens, the next Nate McMillan right there to you.
Well, we'll see about that. But again, congrats to Brent on that move.
I loved you should have saved that. You should have done a bold prediction. Right here. We can do mid-season bold predictions.
I mean, it's not for the upcoming calendar year. So
it doesn't matter. We should be boldly predicting things all the time.
Okay, that's fair. Well,
not enough bold predictions.
Look,
my bold prediction this year is way more bold predictions.
Oh. The real bold prediction is the friends we made along the way.
I've been staying up real late.
Oh dear. It's going to be one of those pods. Congrats to...
Honestly, it's not, because I want to get through the pod as fast as possible to go play more college football.
All right, that's fair. Congrats to Storm assistant coach Pokey Chapman, who has been named a technical advisor to the Brazil women's national team. A possible precursor to Pokey Chapman becoming the coach of that team. So there you go.
Less exciting than here.
No,
you're like, that might mean Pokey Chapman's the coach of the Brazil national team.
We obviously don't have the close personal ties to the Brazil national team that we do the Sonics or the Storm, but congrats to Pokey nonetheless. That's all I have for toast. So I think that takes us right into discussing a place that offers toast.
There we go.
That was a professional segue right there. I have not been, I actually have been staying up late. I guess I've been sleeping in. Our search for Seattle's best cookie this week took us to Saint Bread, which was suggested on the Discord. This was not previously on my list. I was not aware that they had cookies. It didn't show up in my preliminary cookie research, but it was pointed out to us on the Discord that not only do they have cookies, they have a gochujang cookie.
Hello.
But first, a little bit about Saint Bread.
Okay.
From their website, Saint Bread is a bakery and community space on the Portage Bay waterfront near the University of Washington.
There.
Our name comes from the Danish words for true bread, sombrad, and our playful interpretation, I don't know if I pronounced that right, and our playful interpretation nods to plain bread and our belief in tending to something is a sacred act. So it was a lovely Tuesday afternoon on Portage Bay when I went down there. A I don't think I've ever been on Boat Street. I've been on Pacific Avenue, running right parallel to it, one street over, thousands of times in my life,
thousands of times,
hundreds of times at a minimum.
Speaking of Pacific Avenue and Pack In, we need to have on Natalie Lou Sealemon to talk about her search for Seattle's best fish and chips. I've got to follow up on that, how that's going.
That is true. Yes, we're looking forward to doing that. Anyways, I discovered it's really hard to park around there, although I guess there is a parking lot for a pay parking lot for St. Bread.
What does it say? Yelp review?
Located right nearby. I'm just setting the scene for the listener.
About you not being able to park?
But it was, I mean,
you're like, get this. I'm driving around looking for parking.
It was hard to find parking because there were so many people out there at St. Bread at like 3 p.m. on a Tuesday when they were closing at like 2. It was, or at 4, I should say. It was very lucky that I called ahead. Is also was suggested on the Discord to have them reserve for me 2 chocolate chip and 2 gochujang cookies. There was, I think, 1 chocolate chip left when I got there, in addition to the 2 they had reserved. And then there were still a number of the gochujangs, but I needed to make sure that I got those. And finally was able to deliver
gochudoodles?
I believe that's the name of the cookie, right? Gochujang?
Gochudoodle. Okay.
Let me double check that, but they are gochujang and snickerdoodle, which is not a combination that I have ever experienced before. And let me tell you, so I was able to deliver these to you tonight after you, spoiler alert, attended the Mariners game. We'll hear more about that later.
Maybe we won't.
I think we will. Let me tell you, these are outstanding cookies. You're just letting that sit there?
It takes 3 miracles for sainthood. And right now, Saint Bread has 2 miracles down in the name of somehow the gochudoodle cookie and the sea salt chocolate chip cookie. 2 miracles down for Saint Bread. The third miracle is probably the rest of the menu. Fried egg sandwich. Hello. I want to go there more than anything.
And they were sold out of basically all of their other like baked goods that were in that case. But I did pick up for you, or for myself, I should say. You declined it.
I did pick up for you. No, actually for me.
A slice of marble bread. I haven't tried that yet, but it looks delicious.
I would have loved a marble bread, but I'm fine without it. If they didn't have the fresh fruit Danish, that's okay. I'm guessing that fresh fruit Danish is going to be the third miracle for Saint Bread. These cookies were a goddamn revelation. And like the book of Revelations, this
getting biblical on this one.
These, because that's a thing I know about.
What were the odds that you would be the Pelton brother on this podcast to quote a book from the Bible?
I was really, honestly, when you sent me the menu, I was kind of expecting the most. I was going to say I was expecting the least here. That's not true. But these cookies have shot up. The only reservations that I have are not even about the cookies themselves. It's that this isn't strictly a cookie place. St. Bread might be too good. This might be more than just cookies. No, they're not in flower box territory. Of all of a sudden we have to search for Seattle's best cookies or something.
I mean,
But
they're not that good,
they
and
are
it's not that difficult. Again, I was able to call ahead and reserve them at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
instantly in the bracket though, to me. And I think the thing that was kind of interesting was I ate this cookie and I was like, Sugarine is out of the bracket. Sorry.
What?
I'm sorry. I don't just
That's not how the bracket works, man.
I've been near Sugarina recently and have not been compelled to go get those cookies. And St. Bread, if I am anywhere near Boat Street, if I'm anywhere along Portage Bay, boating, land or otherwise, I am going to be at St. Bread.
There are also houseboats there. You could just live right near St. Bread.
Wow. My favorite saint yet. Well documented, but these cookies they're not just in the bracket, they're high in the bracket. And I think the inventiveness in particular, the chocolate chip cookie was spectacular for a chocolate chip cookie.
Hold on, let's talk about the chocolate chip cookie.
Okay.
For a second.
I only got, because seeing half of it in there, it was a little bit like, you couldn't have gotten two, my guy. By the way,
I did get two. I saved one for home, not for, I only had half as well.
Okay.
So I figured a cookie and a half was probably sufficient. But yes, in hindsight, I probably would have asked for 3 chocolate chip cookies. But
did they actually put them aside for you?
They did. Yeah.
Wow. That's the third miracle right there.
That is the third miracle. Yeah. When I went to the counter, the person was a little skeptical, but then I pointed out that there was a box in there that had the cookies. So it seemed
they're like,
it seemed verifiable.
We did what for who?
They verified the miracle of me calling ahead. And only my first, I suppose.
I love the idea that you would make up that you called ahead for a cookie. What is the scenario where you went in there and you're like,
well, I saw there's only one chocolate chip.
They're like, they're all out of gochu doodles.
You seem more amused by this name than I am. Anyways,
that you would be like, I have a perfect scheme. I'll tell them I called ahead.
I was struggling for a second after I ate my half of the chocolate chip cookie to place what did this remind me of?
Okay.
Because obviously we've eaten a lot of cookies lately, but I quickly rejected the idea that it was any of the cookies that we've had currently during this search. And then it hit me. The cookie it reminded me of, maybe not quite to this level, but it's in some ways the platonic ideal of a chocolate chip cookie for this search. The original inspiration for the original search, the Hitchcock Deli.
Totally agree.
Full agree. Chip cookie.
And that was a phenomenal cookie. We didn't really finish that search in any way. That was sort of like an ongoing search. This is much more official, but we definitely concluded it was good.
Think about how unofficial that was. If this search is much more official.
We concluded that cookie was definitely very good. And then you also pair it with a lot of places. I think you only need one cookie to be Seattle's best cookie, but having more than one cookie is definitely helpful in the way that, like, when we've been judging, like, I think back to Seattle's best dumplings, and kind of the like signature item at Dough Zone, the winner of that wasn't even a dumpling necessarily, but all of the other stuff matters.
The Discord would probably have some questions about that. Were we to repeat this search today?
That's fine. So what did Zach order?
Sushi.
I feel like you and I are the only ones left who remember this, but it's still amazing.
Shouts to the designer. Hopefully Ben Baldwin still remembers.
Anyway, having more than one good cookie is an important thing here.
Without question.
I think we are searching for Seattle's best cookie. So if there's one single cookie that is way better than the rest, and if this was just a bakery that only had a single cookie and it was amazing, I don't think that would disqualify it. But being able to do it twice definitely matters.
Yeah. The sample size is twice as large. I mean, I'm still not ruling out the possibility that we give a special designation to Met Market as Seattle's best cookie that contains nuts.
Sure, done.
Given the complication of including it in the bracket when you literally cannot eat it. But yeah, no, I think 100% an important differentiator. And okay, let's talk about the gochu doodle because it was unlike anything I've ever eaten. You just can't get past the name.
I'm sorry, but you just said let's talk about the gochu doodle.
Someone's here a little more professional. I don't know if you heard that transition earlier. Uh it it somehow it was a different texture than the chocolate chip cookie. And it's
Mhm.
somehow, while being extraordinarily thin, these cookies are quite thin for my usual taste, maybe more along the lines of Chicorina. It was somehow both crispy and gooey at the same time.
Wow. It had every flavor, every sensation you could possibly have all at once.
I mean, it was a spicy cookie and it
And
was
it
delicious.
mildly. Yeah, it was spicy in a way of like Thanksgiving food is like spicy. It wasn't spicy like it was hot. It was spicy
Uh,
like it was very flavorful. And there were
there
a
was a
number of spices.
note of an aftertaste of, I mean, I'm not saying like it was not on the Modelo scale or anything, but
I I saw the like sesame seeds on there and I was like, I don't know about this. I'm not so sure about this cookie when I looked at it. And then I had two bites. I got to the middle of it. And I was like, oh, yeah, this cookie is excellent. And we stood there. Literally, you gave it to me in Boulevard Park, Washington, home of the Peltoncast. But you gave them to me in Boulevard Park. And I was like, I'm just going to have like a little nibble. I'm going to
yeah,
have a bite. And I literally just sat and stood there and ate 1.5 cookies because I couldn't stop myself. And that is the mark of a phenomenal cookie.
that's a great point. You noted the allergen risk to baby fantasy genius who was riding with you in the car and then just powered right on through and
Did not
finished that
care.
cookie.
Did not care at all.
No, that's competing.
If you're willing to endanger your children, actually it would have been more of an allergen risk if he's allergic to sesame seeds. But if I'd like brought it into the car with me, finishing it was actually the safest way to do
There you go. That's in case Mrs. Fantasy Genius listens to this one.
it. She won't, not a fan, famously.
Oh, she already gets more than enough of the Pelton brothers in her life. Not alone on that one. Anyways, I mean,
I'm in the car and I'm like, the Eagles famously don't have any good songs.
imagine getting the takes, but you cannot turn them off.
You-
You cannot. You can't press pause. You can't go to another podcast. It's just the takes.
Sometimes while you're sleeping, and usually it's about college football. I'm
College
like, I
football,
got Ben Gobranson in the transfer portal.
she's probably not as excited about that as even I was, and I wasn't that excited about it. Anyways,
Wow.
I agree. They are for sure in the bracket. Rubber stamp that. I can't wait to go back.
I want to go back just for all the other stuff.
True. Yeah. So very excited. All right. So we've got a couple locations left. I had not looked at our list lately. We have Cookies with Tiffany, Seawolf. I definitely want to get back to. We still have to determine whether we're going to do the cookies at Hotcakes. And then there's maybe a special crossover pod in our cookie search before we
Hello.
get to the bracket. I mean, I would still, even if we're not going to do a fall live show, probably like to get this wrapped up before we get too far into football season, just from a logistical standpoint.
I got
But,
some bad news for you because we are in football season.
Okay,
This
well,
is the Ken
regular
Hamlin edition
season.
of the podcast, also, right?
It is the Ken Hamlin edition. That is true. Not a lot of great 26s. I feel like Jack Wilson may have worn 26 for the Mariners.
If you're right about that, I'm going to be so shocked because you definitely did not pay attention to the Mariners during Jack Wilson's tenure.
No, that was wildly untrue. I don't know who I'm thinking of. He wore 9
That's
and 2.
there we go.
This is refreshing after I correctly deduced that Cade Marlowe had changed his number from 18 to 2 when I saw him on my screen tonight.
Okay, that sounds about right. But that Keith Marlowe, you were paying attention last year.
Correct.
I was so sad that Haggerty's not around because like we are in just beautiful Haggerty season right now.
Haggerty would be like hitting third in the order right now.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, this team they're pathetic without Haggerty. When he was out for the year, what was their lead in the West? It was like near the peak, right?
I'll have to take a look at that. Hold on. I'm going through number 26s in Mariners history. Adam Frazier. George Glenatsis was 26. I would have guessed
There we
22.
go. Adam
Raul
Frazier
Ibanez when he
hits.
was first called up.
Okay. Is this Mariners history you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not listing in a comprehensive list. Warren Newson.
Oh, what I wanted to mention. Are we talking
I'm thinking of the player I am thinking of is shortstop award number 26 for the Mariners is Brendan Ryan, not Jack Wilson.
Yes. You've confused your white shortstops.
I mean, that's not untrue. Okay, what did you want to talk about?
So, do you remember when we were kids? Today was Mariners trading card night.
Oh, was it? Did you get them?
Absolutely, I did.
Nice.
And so, do you remember when we were kids? The trading cards were sponsored by what is
Mother's Cookies.
Mother's Cookies. I was like, it was by Hostess, but I think a local was Mother's Cookies local.
No, yeah, they
Really?
did this throughout the West Coast. There was an athletic article about it a few years back.
Of course, there was. I like that everything from our childhood that was kind of fun. There's now been an article about.
Of course, there is usually on the Athletic.
Where is that or the Ringer? One of those two has covered it.
Bill Swift pitched for the Mariners in 1998. I have no memory of this. And he wore number 26.
That one sounds made up.
Do you remember this?
Absolutely not. One of
He pitched a lot.
One of Luca's friends, he came home and he was like, "Oh yeah, Hank's dad pitched in the majors for 3 years." And I was like, "What?" He's just like literally like the dad of a kid that plays with him. And I was like, "That's true information." And I looked it up, and he literally pitched in the majors in like the mid 2000s.
Ooh. Are you willing to say who this player is?
Something Cisco. He pitched for the Royals, I want to say. Andrew Cisco. Andy Cisco. Yeah. He was just like I've known this kid for a couple of years, and he was like, oh yeah, Hank's dad pitched in the majors. And I was like, what?
From Eastlake High School. Second round pick in 2001. Huh. There you go.
Yeah. He pitched all throughout like Taiwan and Korea.
That's fun.
And Japan, I believe.
Does he like taco time?
What?
We'll have him on the pod.
Is that's the level of celebrity that you need to be on Talking Taco Time?
Well, look.
Having pitched it in the majors in the early 2000s is enough. Having an 8 ERA in 2007, that's all we need. All right, fair enough. I'll float it. I'll be like, Luca, could you text Hank and be like, does your dad like taco time by any chance?
As one does.
Anyway, Mother's Cookies. So the Mariners, you would go to trading card night in the 90s. If everybody hasn't read the Athletic piece about this, but it would be like a much larger team set than there was today. Although, very sadly, in this team set, Ty France featured.
Oh, wow.
Which gets a wah-wah for me. But
we'll get there.
we're walking around the corridor, and there's just like a big aisle of clearance Ty France jerseys. And I'm like, well, got those up there quickly. But so it'd be a whole team set, and then there would be one player that you'd have like 5 cards of that player, and not everybody, but there would be like 5 different versions of that one extra player. You don't remember this?
I don't remember that part of it.
And so the intent was that you would take those like 5 Rob Duvalls or whatever you had, and then trade them with other people so that you would get a complete set to encourage people talking to each other at the ballpark, trading with your friends, old school like trading card stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, it's 2024 and they don't do that shit anymore.
Oh, of course not. I don't even remember this.
Individually packaged cards just for a person to post on TikTok.
Wait, who did you say you had 5 cards of?
Rob Duvall, was that not his name?
I think you may be thinking of Rob Ducey.
Rob Ducey.
That's the best I can come up with. Member of the 1997
the example
and 98
that I
Seattle
gave
Mariners.
earlier was like Mackie Sasser or Mike Blowers. Mike Blowers might be a little bit too good to have been that player, but it was always kind of like a fringe player, or like it'd be like 5 Marzanos or something.
Yes, that makes sense. That almost sounds like a scale there.
5
I've
Marzanos.
rated this fight on a scale of
I
0
actually
to
do
5
not want to be a
Marzanos.
5 out of 5 Marzanos. I'm happy being a 1 or a 0 Marzanos. I don't know what
Oh,
the scale is, but there's been nights that I've been 5. Um,
there's the Boise State game.
the Boise State game, you think I was 5 Marzanos?
That was the one where you kicked or no, that
No,
was
that was
BYU.
BYU. That
BYU,
was
yeah. With the
BYU, and I
joke.
stand behind it
With the joke.
as just literally was the only it was the only reasonable response to the end of that game.
This, of course, was in the 2008 season where the Huskies went 0-12 and lost the BYU game because Jake Locker was flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct on his touchdown celebration on what appeared to be a game-tying touchdown, but the penalty moved back the extra point, which was subsequently missed.
Anyway, so it was trading
This
card
is
night.
nothing like a Saturday on Montlake. Trading card night.
I'm sorry, but it was still fun. We still had a great time at that game, didn't we?
I don't think you did have a great time. I mean, look at the fun story to tell now. Comedy equals tragedy plus time.
But it was even like we got there. I don't remember the tailgate for it, but like we got there early. We
I
hung
bet you
out,
don't remember the tailgate for it.
we drank some beers, we ate some hot dogs. It was amazing. It was sunny outside.
It was sunny outside. I can confirm.
The outcome of the game doesn't change things. Also, so you set your favorite team in NCAA football, and then they have like a fake ticket, and it's for the Oregon game last year. And I'm just like, literally, is the greatest sporting event I've ever been to. I've been to the tip, like games that have names and shit like that, the double, the tip, all of those things. I will not. I have never been more excited in a sporting event than when Oregon missed that field goal. That was it. It's not, honestly, it's not even close.
Might need to think on that one a little bit.
I think the double, we were too young for it to have that like impact. I've been to like a two winning NBA finals games. Again, I was still too young and they didn't have like a signature moment. The way that Oregon lost that game and having it be against Oregon the year that the Huskies literally went to the national championship game is the best sporting event I've ever been to.
It doesn't rank as highly for me, but it was a great moment nonetheless.
Why? What is yours? Mount Rushmore. No.
We're not doing this tonight. Not doing this. You need to get back to playing college football. I need to ponder it first. All right, let's get into.
Okay, next week we'll talk about the Mount Rushmore of Seattle sports moments that you've been to. For me, it's like pretty easy. I mean, that's 3 I named right there. And the comeback versus the Packers, I don't know if there's a name for it, is probably the 4th. That's it. Done.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to like 2 games where I got championship rings based on them. So those are pretty tough to top.
It's so different. It is so different. When you're there as a fan, it is different than being there as an employee.
I agree it's different. I don't think it's different in the way you think it's different. All right.
Underrated though, actual best Seahawks game that I went to was Festivus 2011, 2010. Beat just
the 49ers
crushing the 49ers. Because that was like the Seahawks were on the map when they won that game.
2012 was Russell Wilson's rookie season, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
2011 was the Tavares Jackson season.
Festivus 2012 beating that 49ers team was actually probably my favorite memory of the Russ era.
It was a fun night, without question. Also against a rival. All right, it's time to quickly turn our attention to non-cookie Seattle food because we have reached peak Pagliacci Lil Woody's crossover this week. The Pagliacci has had the Lil Woody's Primo is one of their seasonals for a few weeks now. That'll be on the menu through August 6th is their seasonal. And Lil Woody's this week is doing a Pagliacci Pesto Chicken Burger as Burger of the Week. Here's their description. This year, our Pagliacci-inspired burger takes a fresh approach. Inspired by their pesto salad, we've used pesto as a sauce for dipping fried chicken and blended Pagliacci marinara sauce into mayo for a unique twist. Our burger also features fresh mozzarella, zesty red onions, and a spicy kick of Mama Lil's peppers.
Are you going to have this? Are you going to be reporting back?
I probably will, yes.
Report, since we won't be podcasting before this is gone, you're going to have to report on the Discord how it is.
And on Instagram. Can give a
Okay.
review there. Maybe
There
on
we go.
TikTok. Not there. All right, with that.
Okay, so this is Tristan from the Peltoncast. This week I'm checking out.
Oh, it's not that far away.
Hey,
With that,
This is Kevin from the Peltoncast, and this week I'm reviewing the Pagliacci crossover Little Woody's Burger. That's gonna be you. You have to talk like that on TikTok and then do the Peltoncast dance.
we'll have to invent that first.
Pelton. Okay, sorry.
We're doing it to HOTTOGO? Are we, is that the
Peltoncast. No, I don't.
yeah, it does not work. It does not work.
Pelton. There we go.
With that,
consider it.
I suppose I will consider. With that, it is time for your favorite segment.
Don't burn yourself. We got Mariners hot takes coming at ya.
You think I wrote takes about this fucking team? Are you kidding me? This team doesn't deserve takes. They don't deserve the time that it would take me to write down takes for them. No takes for the Mariners right now. You have to earn the right for hot takes. And this Mariners team they're not even fun bad. They're just bad. They're abhorrent. I hate every single thing about this baseball team. I'm not writing takes until they have earned it back. Thank you.
I don't want to blame the team. I mean, Who
do you want to blame?
I mean, depends how we're defining the team, but I think people are generally define the team as the players. And like, part of the whole reason that M's hot takes exists as a joke is because baseball, unlike other sports, has so fucking little to do with effort. Like, the harder you try at most things in baseball that aren't maybe defense and base running, I agree, trying hard is important. Trying hard as a hitter is worse. Trying hard as a pitcher, probably also worse. Probably the cause of most failure is trying too hard. But people treat it like these other sports where, like, oh, they're not doing well. They must not be trying hard enough or focused enough. And no, the answer is some combination of health, luck, and just underlying ability. Like, that's why I found Scott Service's complaints about the team after Monday night's game pretty galling. Like, yes, I agree that they should have done much better than they did against the Angels. Like, and I totally get his frustration, especially with JP Crawford getting injured and subsequently joining Julio Rodriguez on the injured list when they were both placed there on Tuesday. But like, the problem
Not his frustration with JP Crawford for getting injured. His frustration about JP Crawford getting injured.
Correct. With the situation of JP Crawford getting injured. But like, I just don't buy that it's a lack of effort or lack of focus or any of these things.
Is somebody saying that it is a lack of effort? They're just bad.
I mean, I think that's what Scott Service was implying in his post game.
Maybe. I don't know. He probably would know better than us if it is a lack of effort, and maybe it is. But like, I guess I agree with you that I don't think that a lack of effort is the issue necessarily.
Maybe I just think that people are used to that because most things in life, effort is correlated with success. But baseball is not most things in life.
Maybe Scott Service should look at himself then as the problem here, because if motivation matters, I'm not super sure what matters in baseball aside from having good players. I would love to see Scott Service come out and just be like,
I think money matters.
Scott Service just be like straight up and be like, I'm like the rest of you. I wanted good players too, but they wouldn't let me have them. So fuck me then. He's already the chances of Scott Service being the manager on this team have, like, if you look at the playoff odds for the Mariners, I assume they're probably still not awful right now per Fangraphs.
About 40%.
But you could probably correlate that exactly with the chances of Scott Service being the manager of the team next year.
Service called the team's effort, performance, and game result, quote, inexcusable. That's from the Seattle Times Ryan Divish story.
I'm not super sure what that means, what the idea of excusable or not is. Just like in the eyes of Scott Service or the fans or what? Like, I mean, you could make an excuse for anything. There's always excuses. And also, in the grand scheme of things, none of this matters. It's baseball. So like the severity to it is how it matters to Scott Service and his job. and the general happiness of hypothetical baseball fans across Seattle, which is very low right now. I think the way that the Mariners have had this season structured, of being a like actually deeply maybe kind of mediocre team. I don't want to say bad, but a deeply mediocre team that happened to find themselves in the 10-game lead in the division and then lost that 10-game lead in the division, really more or less playing slightly worse than they were before, but not necessarily overall that much worse. And the Astros playing better and maybe some bad luck going against them. It has set the Mariners up for this being of this current run. This is probably the most disappointing moment of the last 4 seasons.
Oh, without question. I mean, I think the final weekend of last season, especially in the context of, to a degree, selling at the trade deadline, although, Josh Rojas did end up contributing a lot the rest of the season after they added him. Like, that was
And
frustrating.
Don't you say Josh Rojas.
I mean, Canzone's contributed more this season, and we'd have to look up when. I did not look up Sam Haggerty when he went on the DL, but Canzone has certainly been missed since he was injured.
They did spend, I mean, starting pitching wise, this team actually has still been extraordinarily healthy outside of Brian Wu. And like that has repeated itself year after year. The offense, on the other hand, has been quite injured. And it's a thing that we forget sometimes. And we talked about this in the offseason, which is when you get to July, the team is just going to look radically different than they do in April. And I'll tell you, this lineup that they were throwing out there today on July 23rd, 2024.
Like, how can you be mad at the players in this lineup? What is the reasonable expectation for a lineup that features a third of it is guys who were in Tacoma 2 days ago?
At least what's 1/9? What's the percentage of that? 12% or something of the players I'd never heard of before I got to the ballpark.
It's 11%.
And 11% of the players I'd never heard of before I got to the ballpark. But it did. A lot of people have commented on the lineup. To me, I actually didn't look at it and was like, oh, that's crazy. But when you're in it, you just kind of know the players a little bit better. But Luca was comparing it to, is it Jose Marmolejos?
Sounds right. I'm not the person to ask about this.
To when Jose Marmolejos was like hitting cleanup for the Mariners. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does look like that. This feels like some like peak Fernando Vina days. But just
did Fernando Vina actually play for the Mariners?
Absolutely, he did.
I mean, he was on the roster, I know, but like he wasn't starting a lot, was he? All right, well, we'll have to research that as well. The Mariners were 6.5 up when Sam Haggerty went on the injured list. When Dom Canzone went on the injured list, they were already only 2 up.
Only in 93. I thought Fernando Vina came back later.
No. I believe Fernando Vina, I want to say, was a Rule 5 draftee who was on the Major League roster because of that. And then they returned him at some point during that season.
Ended up being an okay ball player.
Yeah, returned in June 1993 to the Mets.
Anyway, I'm thinking of somebody else who wasn't Fernando Vina then. There was a different player from the 2000s that I'm thinking of. But they're not a good baseball team. I really don't know how to put it. And
I mean, we've gone from the no holes to like, what are not the holes on the Seattle Mariners at this point?
That offensively, that's true. The holes is still the pitching.
I agree, but offense is like a really important part of the game. Maybe even half.
This was one of those moments when I assume it was a front office decision to let Ty France go. I'm sure Scott Service didn't fight them a ton on it because obviously, he was the one who had Ty France hitting 9th. It's not like it was just strictly a salary decision to irrevocably designate. What was it? He was irrevocable
waivers, and then subsequently, after clearing those, was designated for assignment.
So that decision was both a mutual decision, I'm sure, between Scott Service on the baseball side and the front office. But
I like the front office not being on the baseball side.
But there are sometimes the decisions are made financially that weren't necessarily made on the field. And I'm saying this was a mutual decision. Ty France wasn't playing well. Again, Scott Service made the decision to bat Ty France 9th for the first time in his career, and he was being paid. But there was a moment where Tyler Locklear made an error in the game. And then a second play, I don't know if this was ruled an error, but there was a pop-up in foul territory. Or can you have an error if it's in foul territory?
I don't believe you can, but I would have to investigate this particular play.
where there was a miscommunication between Cal Raleigh and Tyler Locklear, and nobody caught the ball. And it was one of those things where you're just like, okay, like, yeah, there might have been some slightly redeeming qualities of Ty France, professional baseball player, which Tyler Locklear will get there, but they're in the midst of a playoff hunt right now. And this team,
Sort of.
I mean, they're tied for the division lead. Like, that they are in a playoff hunt right now. And the Mariners right now, I'm curious what the conversations going on behind the scenes are. But I think if they don't go, I don't want to say go all in this year, but go some in this year, if they don't make a move for a veteran bat near the deadline this year, and they end up missing the playoffs comfortably, I think it's going to be real hard to win this fan base back. And I think that this offseason, like, the excitement's going to be around zero. Scott Service is going to be gone. There might be a chance that Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto are gone as well. So,
I mean,
nobody's job is safe right now in the Mariners organization, both on the field and off the field. Maybe save for Julio Rodriguez, who's a person who probably should also be scrutinized, was playing well before he went on injured list, though.
I think one of the least useful exercises in almost any situation is searching for blame. It's why I hate the term accountability as it's generally used in sports, because it's just a synonym for blame. And 95% of the time, what is really relevant is what is going to be the best thing going forward. Like, is having another manager other than Scott Service going to be the best thing for the Mariners going forward? It probably doesn't matter. All managers are pretty replaceable. Is having a different front office in place going forward going to be the best thing for the Mariners? The results from last offseason on the hitting side have been so bad that for the first time, as frustrated as people have often been, I am open to the idea that they might be better off going forward without Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander.
You think they're a package deal, both of them? You don't think Jerry Dipoto could scapegoat Justin Hollander?
I mean, he could. I don't think that would be a very successful scapegoat. I think, Scott Service will be the first to fall for that.
I mean, I think if things get more bleak throughout the season, like if we were looking at this odds wise, like, the odds of Scott Service making it to the end of the year are definitely not super high.
I mean, 100% when Ryan Divish tweeted on Monday night, I fear a game, saying the game wasn't all the Mariners lost tonight, which turned out to be a reference to J.P. Crawford's injury. I 100% thought that meant Jerry Dipoto or Scott Service was getting fired. So, yeah, I mean, it's very plausible. It could happen at any time.
I just, outside of trading for better players, I'm not sure what the answer is. And it might be firing Scott Service, and you just hope that you have a honeymoon period with a new manager. Like,
I mean, I suppose.
But this team is how long does Scott Service have on his deal? Isn't this team pretty famously cheap? Like, the idea of scapegoating Scott Service and hoping for a turnaround because of a honeymoon period with a new manager, it doesn't seem like something to me that they would do necessarily.
Service signed an extension in 2021. Dipoto signed an extension at the same time. They were both described as multi-year. They were both in the midst of the final year of their contracts. So not entirely sure, but may not be that many left.
Okay.
And team and managerial contracts are probably more likely to have team options that could make it financially palatable. Again, I don't think the changing managers will help. They're just as likely to have a fluke period as they are with Scott Service as manager, as they have many times over these these many years.
They're less likely to have a fluke period when Julio Rodriguez and J.P. Crawford are on the injured list.
Well, that's the big thing. Is so the 40% on Fangraphs to make the playoffs, which is now lower than it was at the start of the season. That to me is a more relevant comparison point than the 10-game lead, because the 10-game lead was not itself guaranteed. Like, that's just, things happen throughout the season. But now they are in a worse spot than we expected them to be in at the start of the season. And they're in the worst spot, despite the AL West being substantially worse than we would have expected it coming into the season. Like, coming into the year, you would have thought that a substantial part of that, 45% or whatever it was to miss the playoffs on Fangraphs was like, well, they're pretty good, but the Astros and Rangers are just better, as was the case last season. Now it's not, those are not a big part of those scenarios. Now is the team just being like the seventh or eighth best team in the American League. So all of that leads me to the conclusion, in concert with those injuries not being factored in, I think they should sell now.
It's
I
just
think
not
they
going to
should.
happen.
I
It's
think
like,
they should actively be looking to trade Luis Castillo, especially if it's in a deal that would also get rid of Mitch Haniger's salary, because then that would give you
wow.
40 million in payroll next year to go out and add, hitters, and maybe you're spending like 5 million on a fifth starter. Like, I think Luis Castillo is less valuable to the Mariners than he is to other teams, because when you get in a playoff scenario, the difference between the Mariners' top four starters and maybe even their all five starters is marginal, whereas Luis Castillo would be a pretty massive upgrade over whoever the third or fourth starter is for most teams in baseball.
I just find it, I would be very surprised if that was something that they did.
I agree that I would be surprised. But the other thing about, like, oh, will they ever win over the fan base? Like, they play well next season. I don't think people are going to be like, well, yeah, but still they traded Luis Castillo. Like, people get over this shit pretty quickly.
I mean, as long as they're good, but like your idea of
Which is
having
a big
money to
if.
spend, the idea of having money to spend is kind of like, for who, for what? And
It's fair. I'm just saying, like, if you go into the next offseason with this same team and the only money you have to spend is because Jorge Polanco and Ty France are off the books, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be allow you to do as much offensively as you need to do. And you would presumably add something to your prospect base in that deal, making it therefore easier to trade prospects for a hitter, or to not diminish your farm system as dramatically if you do that.
I mean, I'm just looking at it. What Cody Bellinger's not been having a good year, right? Like Soto, the Mariners just wouldn't have the money for. Paul Goldschmidt's 37. Teoscar again. Like, I mean, Pete Alonso
Hey,
possibly,
Oscar
but
did
like,
not sound like a guy who was super interested in reuniting with the Mariners. I feel like there's a
I,
pretty good chances the Dodgers re-sign him.
I'm sure that they will. But basically, most free agents are either too expensive for the Mariners to sign. The free agents who are actually going to impact your team are just too expensive for the Mariners to sign. Or they're really old, and that's why it's not a good deal. Sitting right in front of them, there are multiple players out there. I understand that these players might be expensive in terms of prospects, but there are 3 to 4 players that are seemingly on the trade market right now who have multi-year deals, who allow you to achieve both goals at once.
I mean, if your argument is to do both of those trades, I'm okay with that. If the
I mean, I
logic
suppose you
of
could, but you don't trade the prospects for Luis Robert or something, and then also trade Castillo. You basically say, look, assuming in a week that they're in the same position that they are, give or take a game or two, you say, fuck it, like, we're not good, but we can make the playoffs this year, and making the playoffs is really the only goal in baseball. Anything can happen once you get there, especially if you have pitching. And you just say, fuck it, we're going to try to get there. Julio will be back in probably a week or whatever. And you both set yourself up for the remainder of this season without giving up on this season. And you set yourself up next season with a good hitter on the roster who's young and under team control. There are options out there to do both. I get that it costs prospects, but on the free agent market, let's say that you trade Luis Castillo, there's nobody else out there who's going to give you the kind of return on the field that Luis Castillo is going to give you.
But that's part of my point, is that Castillo is more valuable to another team than he is to the Mariners. Therefore, you can turn around and use that return to get someone who will be more important to the Mariners in terms
Trade
of
him this offseason then. Do that later.
I mean, the thing about starting pitchers is the time to trade them is when they are healthy, because you can't guarantee that it's going to be the case going forward. The other thing about this is Luis Castillo's trade value right now is the highest it is ever going to be the rest of his contract. Like, it's never going to get better than right now.
That feels like a hard sell to me. I'm just trying to find the player where it's like, okay, maybe, like, they're not going to pay Christian Walker, Pete Alonso.
But again, the 40 million doesn't have to be spent in free agency. It also can be spent acquiring players in trades like that.
You're saying you would get prospects back for Castillo, and then you're like, okay, we can spend some of these prospects for one of these players, increase salary.
Yeah. And you have that, again, more money to spend. It allows you to go out because, again, it's not one player. It's not like, hey, Jazz Chisholm, problem solved. They got to get like 5 new starters at this point. I mean, maybe generously you could say that the outfield is covered, that Garver has been okay enough that you can stick with him as DH, I guess, generously. But that still leaves, I mean, you got to be very optimistic about Tyler Locklear at first, Polanco at second. Obviously, he's not going to be back on next year's buyout. I don't really even consider third to be settled at this point. Josh Rojas has come back to earth pretty considerably. I don't know. They just need better hitters in a lot of spots.
I agree. They need better players overall. I guess I just don't. I don't. Good option is, but I do think if you have a chance to make the playoffs, you should probably. And they do have a window to make the playoffs. I get that it's 40% right now. 40% is better than a lot of other teams.
But I'm telling you that I think it's 40% overstates it because it's not factoring in those injuries. And I think it's a little optimistic to think that it's just going to be 10 days on the injured list and then Julio will be back, given that it's not a low ankle sprain. It's a high ankle sprain that he suffered.
I mean, I guess maybe I'm judging the initial word that we got on Julio just being day to day, and then it ended up being more severe. But I don't know. There's no good answer. We just have to hope that they win some games here over the next week. I mean, maybe you don't because you want them to blow it up or whatever.
Yeah.
I
mean, also they played the Angels, who are not very good, and have now lost 5 out of 6 to the Angels in the last week and a half here. Like, I mean, I don't want to read too much into 6 games, but it's not inspiring a lot of optimism.
I just went into this game saying that I hope to see runs plural. And even that expectation wasn't met.
That was too much. Too beautiful for this world, that idea of runs. Anything else on the Mariners? Do you want to learn some more about Jason Vossler?
Sure.
What a nice game today. Jason Vossler had a hit and a walk, right? A double and a walk. He previously played 77 games for the Giants across 2021 and 2022, 20 games for the Reds last season. Career coming into today, a 210 hitter at the major leagues, 279 OBP, 408 slugging. It was a little surprising to me when they called him up ahead of Tyler Locklear. The fact that Locklear is now also up, it makes a little more sense. His numbers at Tacoma are good. They're fairly similar to what he'd done in the AAA in the past, though, although I will grant that previously he had been playing at El Paso, which is an extreme hitter's park back in 2019. The last couple of years, 2 years when he was at the Giants at Sacramento, which is probably still a little better hitter's park than Tacoma, just based on temperature. So maybe he's been having a slightly better season when you adjust for that. But probably not the answer. All right.
I hate this team. They've really been shut down by Jose Soriano multiple games in a row now.
This is why I'm looking to sell.
I guess I get it, but it just
yeah.
We've got more season to pay attention to, and I want the rest of the season to be fun to watch.
I do too. I want that. I'm just not optimistic that it's going to happen. Should we get into the roundup? Well, the Seattle Sounders had been up as the Mariners were down. Is this so often the case in the Sounders history? That did not continue.
Everyone's down.
Well, all owners are pointing down at the moment as they suffered a 3-0 loss to LAFC, snapping their 5-game MLS winning streak. They conceded a penalty in the 14th minute for a Nuhu handball on a ball that was bouncing precariously near the line. That was converted by Denis Bouanga, who then doubled the lead in the 26th minute as the route was on. Bouanga made it a hat trick in the 74th. Sounders had 20 shots, 5 on goal, and generated 1.2 XG in this game, but they conceded 2.2 to LAFC. Sounders still tied for sixth in the West, 1 point up on Portland, heading into the MLS break for Leagues Cup action in the month of August, starting in late July. Uh, this year's Leagues Cup sees the Sounders drawn against Minnesota United and Necaxa, hosting both matches, starting with the Loons visiting for a rare Friday night match this week. Minnesota currently holds the ninth and final playoff spot in the West with a -1 goal differential. The one team in Seattle that was successful over the weekend, Reign FC, who got a 2-1 win over Utah Royals in the opener of the Summer Cup that the NWSL and Liga MX Femenil are playing. Got the winner from Sofia Huerta in the 77th minute after the teams traded goals late in the first half, with the Olivia Athens scoring from the spot for the Reign, who started a young lineup. It was their first win across all competitions since May 3rd. The Summer Cup continues Saturday with Reign hosting Tijuana. They traded defender Alana Cook to Kansas City for some allocation money. Cook had not been quite as effective this season and goes to a contending team as Reign FC continues to some degree a rebuild this season. All right, the Olympics are coming, and a lot of women's basketball for us to follow with Storm ties. Before that, on Saturday night, Team WNBA knocked off the USA Women's Olympic team in the WNBA All-Star game with Arike Ogunbowale breaking Jewel Lloyd's All-Star record of 31 points a year after she set it. Neko Glumake started for Team WNBA, had 14 points on 7 of 9 shooting. Lloyd started that game for the USA, but was scoreless with 3 assists in 13 minutes. USA then played their final exhibition ahead of the Olympics on Tuesday, winning 84-57 versus Germany in London. Lloyd had 11 points on 4 of 6 shooting coming off the bench. Australia busy with a number of exhibition matches. They beat Spain 75-66 on Monday behind 14 points and 6 assists from Sammy Whitcomb, as Megbagor had 9 points and 10 boards. Well, Lauren Jackson scored 8 points in 12 minutes off the bench. Also notable, Jade Melbourne started for the Australian team alongside Ezzy and Sammy. On Tuesday, Australia lost 77-74 to Canada, and Storm's Noelle Quinn serving as assistant for Canada, with Whitcomb and Megbagor scoring 9 points apiece on the back, and LJ sitting out. Australia will then play a third game in 3 days on Wednesday, facing host Spain once again. Both the USA and Australia will tip off the Olympics on Monday.
These are all exhibition games right now.
Right now, exhibitions.
Okay.
Opening ceremonies Friday. Both teams tip off the Olympics on Monday. When Australia faces Nigeria, the USA faces Japan, while Canada will face the host France and Gabby Williams.
So is Team USA the prohibitive favorites going into this, or?
Yes. I mean, the one team that could give them a good game is Team WNBA, who did already knock them off.
Who beat them?
Yes.
Was that straight up? Was everybody trying as hard as they could?
I mean, people were taking it much more seriously than an all-star game. It was somewhere between an all-star game and an exhibition game, I would say.
Do you think Team USA is better, or the WNBA All-Stars are better than Team USA?
No, at the end of the day, if you're playing like a 7-game series, the fact that the USA has, certainly the 2 best players in the world in Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson, Wilson has been completely dominate throughout this. A lot of people are saying nobody in the world can stop Asia Wilson, which is weird because nobody in the U.S. can stop her either. So she's just on an all-time heater right now throughout this WNBA season, on to playing for the USA. So I think they would be favored, but like depth-wise, there's not, I would say, a dramatic difference between Team WNBA and the USA Olympic team.
I don't know why I was cheering. I think, well, no, I don't know. There was something about it where I was just like, I'm definitely cheering for the WNBA All-Stars here.
I mean, first off, it's like definitely a revenge tour. Arike Ogunbowale has been MVP both times that they have played this format with the WNBA All-Stars facing the Olympic team, and has not been on the Olympic team either team, which I don't think is wrong, for the record. Like, her style doesn't play as well when you have all the other best players in the world, and she was on an incredible run from 3-point range on Saturday, which is not consistent with her typical level of efficiency, let's say. But I certainly understand why her motivation might have been so high. And then also seeing like Caitlin and Angel play together, like it was fun.
As a person who wants to cheer for the new generation of WNBA, I'm like, get rid of this old guard, right? Like, shouldn't part of it be just having fun?
Of course, part of it should
Oh,
be having fun, but like
what?
the not like the USA team was motivated by the fact that as compared to a normal All-Star game, it's not like somebody can bench you because you didn't play hard in the All-Star game. Cheryl Reeve is determining her rotations for the Olympics in part based on the All-Star game. And then the WNBA team had the competitive element of, well, we got left
Revenge.
off.
Yeah.
So it is a great recipe for an All-Star game.
What about the men's basketball team? I just keep getting notifications about how Team USA is in trouble against whatever team, South Sudan being the first one.
Yeah, the South
These
Sudan
these are also
performance.
exhibitions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The South Sudan performance was pretty shocking. I didn't realize the game was on and learned that they were, down double digits at halftime and watched the entire second half of that. And like they made up the deficit and ultimately won because LeBron made a layup with, 20 seconds left or whatever it was. But it wasn't like they pulled away and like completely dominated once they, got more urgency to win that one. And Germany, it was like back and forth the entire way until LeBron took over late in that game. Now they haven't had Kevin Durant yet. If he's able to return, and Steve Kerr said they're not going to replace him on the roster, like that's obviously a huge addition, particularly his ability to shoot the FIBA three-pointer, which is their biggest issue is they're just not shooting enough threes. They only took 17 again of them against Germany in that game, and Germany I think made 13. So like the math game is not working in USA's favor right now. But
Did they just? Why are they not shooting threes? Is the 3-point line longer?
no, it's a
International.
little shorter. Well, part of it is, I mean, Bam Adebayo did make a bunch of threes against Serbia, but like you're playing Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis together as your backup front court. Like they're not defaulting to shooting. That's for sure. And then they have too many guys who like to dribble the ball a lot and shoot long twos.
Is it kind of just a poorly assembled roster?
No, because it's all the best players. I mean, it's basically the exact roster I picked.
Sometimes isn't all the best players not exactly the right roster though?
I mean, historically, this idea of like the USA needs more Keyshawn Princes, like those guys don't play very much. Granted, that's a 2-decade-old take.
I was so fascinated what player you were going to choose. Tayshaun Prince came out. I'm just trying to say, where's Austin Reeves on the Team USA roster?
I mean, he was there last year. I don't know if I need to tell you how that went.
Was he really?
Yes, he started.
I love it. I love it so much.
It shows how much Americans pay attention to the World Cup.
I also just truly do not care about this at all. Like, I think I would have Schadenfreude if the USA lost, but like I don't. It would be honestly, it would be absurd to have pride about this. Where it's just like, of course the USA should be winning this tournament. Literally, it is a lose-lose situation.
I wouldn't quite say that, but I mean, because certainly like 2008 and 2012, they were fun finals. The USA was tested by a terrific Spain golden generation. And, it was, I think, satisfying to beat. And I think there's very much that possibility in this year's medal rounds because, yes, the USA has the most talented players, although not the most talented. They have the most talented roster, although they don't have the two best players in the tournament. Those have been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic. But
what about Giannis? Isn't he playing?
Oh yeah, Giannis. So the three best. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Giannis and Jokic.
Shai's ahead of Giannis.
Oh my god.
But these other teams have so much continuity that the USA doesn't have, and you just see them
deeply into the void for a moment here.
You just see the USA in the half court offense, and it is rough. The struggle was real at times, and like Germany just has the exact same roster that won the World Cup last year, so it's an advantage for them, and something the USA doesn't have. But the women do have a greater degree of continuity. Like they don't play games necessarily that often, but it is largely the same squad that played at the World Cup. They, were able to get together for some practices during the offseason, a number of these players, they're a little better prepared and just a bigger talent advantage.
But yeah, the U.S. dominates in women's basketball way more than it does in men's basketball.
Yes.
Basically, all the best players are American.
Correct.
I mean, it's
I
why
mean,
you can have a roster that you can leave Caitlin Clark off of.
Yeah, the world's best international player at this point is probably Ezzy
Lauren
Magbegor.
Jackson still.
No, it's Ezzy. We're an Ezzy pod now, as much as we love LJ. So, anyways, that begins Monday. There are some women's games on Sunday, but not involving any of the Storm players.
Ezzy Magbegor is Canadian?
No, she's Australian.
She's Australian. Okay.
Yeah. LJ is a mentor
I'm
for her.
Happily cheering for the Australian team.
Oh, yeah.
In this World Cup.
If they face the U.S.
For the basketball ruse.
They are known as the Opals.
Okay.
All right, Big Ten Media Days begin Tuesday. No UW news of note yet. So we'll probably come back to this one next week, which will be the leading up to the official start date for UW in the Pac-12. And the Big Ten, I should say. The
August
exit date.
2nd? Is that what day we determine it is? The official day? I am here to say that I do not care about preseason coaches' projections or anything like that, even in the slightest. Even having like conversations about them, I think is worthless.
I do care about them, but there's not an official Big Ten one, so I'm not ready to put as much stock into the ones that are out there.
I mean, you more or less know where
it's
everybody's
August 1st.
August 1st is the date. We more or less know where everybody's at. Like none of it comes as a surprise where these teams are, and people are like, "Oh, the whatever." Who was it? It was USA Today did one.
Yes.
And it's just like UW was rated what, like
they were either 9th or 10th.
9th. Yeah, it's just like, okay.
Oh, it is August 2nd.
I just don't care at all.
I care more than you do.
Literally,
those are more predictive than you think they are.
They might be. That's fine. They can be predictive. I'm just saying, I think college football in particular is a very difficult sport to project.
I actually think that's really the opposite, because it's very easy to generally predict based on returning production times, legacy of the program. I think do agree
we
that
know near the top, like it's the top of the Big Ten is probably going to be Oregon and Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. Like, that's almost certainly going to be the case within a couple of teams. But it's just like, when you're talking about 9th versus 4th, maybe 5th, something like that, there's a lot of variation in there. And I think this UW team in particular is an extraordinarily difficult team to understand what they're going to look like.
Yes, given that they have virtually no returning production.
So that's part of the reason. But also, we're now in an era that preseason rankings matter less than they did.
Yes.
So I don't know. I understand we need shit to talk about because it's July and the season doesn't start for like 6 weeks. And that's the end of where this matters. Because you could look at Jed Fish's team last year, and I believe they were picked 10th in the Pac-12.
Let's see here.
Noah Fafita, who is one of the most important names in college football quarterbacks, was not on the map at this point last year. And that's partially what I'm saying as well.
They were picked 8th.
Eighth in the Pac-12. But like, Noah Fafita is one of the most important quarterbacks in all of college football, and wasn't even the starting quarterback for Arizona at this point a year ago.
That is correct.
So I'm just like, I don't know. Shit can change very, very quickly.
Indeed it can. Well, as we mentioned at the top, Seahawks training camp begins Wednesday. The Seahawks last week placed 7 players on the PUP list and 5 on the non-football injury list, including 4 projected starters: Jerome Baker, Anthony Bradford, Tyrell Dodson, and Abe Lucas. But Baker, Bradford, and Dodson have all since passed their physicals, leaving Lucas the only key player expected out at the start of practice as he comes off season knee surgery. particularly good news, I think, in the case of Baker and Dodson, because linebacker is, such a thin position for the Seahawks. And those guys are both new to the team and new to Mike Macdonald's system. So the more action they can get in training camp, I think unquestionably the better. Last week we discussed the top 10 position rankings that my ESPN colleague Jeremy Fowler is compiling. Devin Witherspoon ended up the only Seahawks player in the top 10 of any of them, finishing 9th at cornerback. Witherspoon is a baller, an AFC scout said. He's the most physical corner and he's hyper competitive.
Kind of incredible considering he was injured for a chunk of the season and a rookie, but he's probably the best player on the team.
I mean, Geno Smith is the best player on the team. I definitely buy that
Geno Smith is the best. He is the most important player on the team.
He's the best. He's the highest paid player on the team. But if everyone on the team was a free agent,
he's the most important player on the team, Geno Smith.
But that's what best means.
No, best means that best is relative to their position in the talent pool around them.
No. So would you say that that Jason Myers is a contender for the Seahawks best player? He's probably a top 10 kicker. I don't think they did.
It's kickers. A little different for kickers. Come on.
Well, but either position value matters or it doesn't matter. It can't only matter when it's convenient.
You're talking about such an extreme outlier. Like,
am I?
If they had an offensive lineman who was one of the top 10 players in the league, then I would say that. Almost any other position, except for kicker and punter, special teams. You're like, if they had the best kick returner.
I mean, Geno's going to finish highest in the NFL 100, isn't he?
No, I think Devin Witherspoon is going to finish higher than him, almost certainly. Devin Witherspoon has the combination for the players of everybody knows he's got that dog in him. He's awesome. He's exciting and 100% approval rating from players. He's the exact type of player that players like.
I agree that he's the type of player that players like. You know what type of player players don't like? Hyped rookies?
I do not agree with that. In fact, I think Devin, we can bet on this right now. I think Spoon's the highest rated player in the NFL 100 on the Seahawks.
I no longer feel as confident now that we're betting on it. All right, who's going to have the best? I was going to say Madden rating, but that'll be too relative.
Oh, that's definitely going to be Spoon.
But I mean, I do think it's worth talking about, like, how the Seahawks could potentially be a competitive team with only one player as a top 10 player across.
This has been the formula for them since they traded Russell Wilson. This has been the formula for the Seahawks.
11 positions. We did not rank kickers.
Now, I mean, good. That's a reason why we can't count kickers in this. If any of those other positions, if they're in the top 10, but
is Kyle Juszczyk the 49ers best player?
Yes.
Clearly the NFL's best fullback. I guess Christian McCaffrey is probably the NFL's best running back, so he does have that going for him.
Is he rated number one? Was he number one on the running back list, McCaffrey?
Let me take a look. Yes, he was.
God damn the Niners. Anyway.
I mean, I don't know how many players they had on the top 10, but I know it was a lot.
It is just, I hate that we live in these times when our most hated rivals are the most up right now. Maybe not ever, but like in the era, like the Niners when they were way up back in the day weren't our rivals like they are now. Yeah. And honestly, Oregon this is probably the most up Oregon's. I mean, even though they went to the national championship, like the rivalry is deeper than it was then for both of these franchises. And they're both the best they've ever been.
I mean, the old rivalry is only deeper with Oregon because the Huskies were so far down when Oregon was previously up. I'd still take this. Also, the UW did beat them twice last year.
I feel like people are kind of forgetting that we went to the national championship game. Like in the college football game, like the preset pro potential for UW is a C+. And I'm like, how many players were drafted from this team? How many were drafted in the first round? Are you kidding me? But whatever. Those are my complaints. Look, it's obviously funded by Big Colorado and Big Oregon. So But it's just, I do feel like UW went to the national championship game. So much shit changed over. Basically the entire roster, the entire coaching staff, and then everybody kind of forgot that they went to the national championship game.
I agree with that.
But anyway,
So
you're
the
not willing to bet
formula-
on this?
Yeah.
There's almost nothing
talked me into
I'm
it.
sorry. There's really nothing that Geno Smith is going to be rated higher. Salary. I agree that Geno Smith is a more important player for the Seahawks, but Devin Witherspoon is the best player on the Seahawks.
I mean, also, like, I need to see more than one season from Devin Witherspoon, because guess who was the guy who was in the top 10 at cornerback a year ago?
Rick Woolen, still in the top 100 somehow.
Still in the top 100, which is interesting. He wasn't in the Seahawks starting lineup for a portion of late last season.
I feel like we sort of, there's a little bit of, it's funny because I think people are thinking a little bit more negative about the Seahawks because Pete Carroll's gone, but at the same time, it's a little bit of like, Pete Carroll fucked that one up.
I mean, that's a little strange to say, because I don't know how many coaches would have put Rick Woolen out there or even drafted him in the first place. Like, obviously, only the Seahawks did draft him.
Pete Carroll is off the map for like, he is off the chart for things a normal coach would do.
I mean, obviously, like Devin Witherspoon, the pedigree is dramatically higher. He was what pick was he?
Fifth pick in the draft.
Fifth pick in the draft, as opposed to Rick Woolen, who was drafted in the 6th round. Like, your priors for how good Devin Witherspoon will be going forward should be higher this year than they were for Rick a year ago. I would still like to see another year for him. But anyways, my larger point was, like, if you're
I would also like to see another year. I'd like to see another decade from him. What are you talking about?
Before, like, putting him as the Seahawks' best player. If you're looking for the formula to be competitive, well, only having one player in the top 10 at these position rankings, it's to have, like, the 16th best quarterback, because quarterback is so important relative to these other positions, and to have, like, 2 receivers who are in the top 25, that sort of thing, which is precisely what the Seahawks have.
I totally agree.
So
I think people are underrating this team right now. I mean, I just don't.
I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. I do not think the statistical projections are going to be kind. I think people are underestimating the degree to which, although a new coach increases variance, the average result of a coaching change is getting worse, because of the fact that you obviously had a roster that was built for your previous coach's schemes, and now you're bringing in different schemes. And they're not only bringing in different schemes, they're bringing in first-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, never coached in the NFL, first-time defensive coordinator. Like, there's a lot of potential downside there for the Seahawks.
Where did the Seahawks rank DVOA wise in each of those categories, offense, defense, last year?
I know what you're doing, and I don't agree with it.
But it's right.
That, we'll just be as good at the stuff we were good at, but we'll fix all the stuff we were bad at. Like, that's every coaching change in history. Everyone has thought that's going to happen, and usually they don't.
I'm just saying, I don't. These numbers are so hard to find now, but like, offensively, it's not like they massively exceeded expectations offensively. They were like the 12th best offense, something like that, and probably like the 25th best defense.
They were the 11th best offense and the 19th best defense.
Okay.
I think people that's total and on. No, that's total and weighted. Never mind. Pay no attention to what I just said. They were
19 seemed a little high defensively to me.
12th best offense and the 28th best defense.
Basically exactly what I said. I'm sorry, but like, how is that combination, which great, offense matters way more than defense, but that combination of things, and granted, maybe they go back to 16th on offense and like 25th on defense, and that is a worse combination overall.
Or 16th on offense and 20th on defense might be a worse combination from that standpoint.
So I can see how that happens, but offensively, the talent is not that different.
Offensively, it's not. Defensively, I think you are you have to be really optimistic that Pete Carroll was fucking things up, because
Were they ranked 28th?
I concede that, but again,
like, yeah, I don't
like
have...
I've just explained how the offense can be pretty top 10 offense without top 10 position players. That's not true on defense. Like, everyone's like, oh, the Ravens defense with Mike Macdonald. Yeah, the Ravens defense also had like stars all over the field. And granted, some of those guys developed into stars under Mike Macdonald, but like, it's very different.
Can you imagine? It's very hard for me to see a scenario that they are worse than the 28th best defense next year.
No, that's very unlikely.
So I really do not understand. I think people are underestimating just how shitty of a team they were last year. No, the thing that the piece that they might not have is just, I guess, the luck to win 8 games. But like,
Well, the other factor that they might not have is like Gino started 32 of the 34 games over the last 2 seasons. They did win a game, but Drew Lock isn't on the roster. He's not walking through that door. If Geno Smith gets hurt this
oh,
year, it could get ugly in a real hurry.
I feel just as confident with quarterback whose name I don't remember from Washington. Do you remember his name?
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell. I feel just as confident with Sam Howell as I do with Drew Lock.
I did forget that Sam Howell was on the roster until you mentioned quarterback.
So I'm sorry, but like people are too down on the Seahawks.
We'll see what the wins projections say. I suspect I know what they're going to say. And
what was the win projection last year? Is probably also quite bad.
Okay, they
probably went from about average to probably again about average. I guess is what I'm saying. Like they're not. I don't think they're going to be on any of the extremes overall. They're going to be within a window that they might make a wild card, and they might be out of the playoffs by a game or two. Like that's.
I think what I think you're underappreciating is the downside risk. The things fall out risk.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, that's always a possibility, but like,
I mean, the other thing about it is like Gino doesn't have a lot of wear and tear relatively for a quarterback. He's also going to be 34 in October. Like it's very possible that he's just not as good because he's older.
You're the one who's arguing that he's the best player on the team and that he's not going to be as good because he's 34.
No, I'm saying that there's downside risk.
Sure, there's downside risk.
There's a lot of risk of Tyler Lockett just being completely, finished as a contributor.
Isn't there the same level of possibility for Jackson Smith and Jigba to become a star player this year, though?
There is.
I think the Lockett and Jigba kind of cancel each other out, and I mean, I guess,
but that's on average they cancel each other out.
There's a chance that Gino is, instead of being, we're probably like 14th, something like that, 15th, 16th. In Ben's rankings, right?
Yeah.
Like Gino could be very bad. That is within the window of possibilities. I would be surprised by that, though.
I mean, I don't think it's a likely possibility, but I think the Seahawks maybe, I suppose they are probably a little bit underrated. It's just people always choose to interpret things in the most favorable fashion that they want them to come out.
What is their over under? Their Vegas over under 7.5 or something?
Sounds right.
I mean, that's probably appropriately rated, but I'm gonna pick the over.
I would probably take the over on 7.5. Okay. I wouldn't feel great about it.
So we agree. I'm still mad we didn't get to bet about the Devin Witherspoon thing because he's going to be higher.
Yeah, I thought about it. So the Seahawks that have been in the NFL 100 thus far, as we alluded to, number 95, Julian Love, cracking another player who was not featured in the top 10 at the safety rankings, but probably will be for players, I would assume. Reek Woolen at number 91, and then DK Metcalf at number 84.
I was a little shocked to see Reek in there.
It was surprising. Given the way his past season went and the recency bias that exists.
Also, here's the thing that the player ratings, which you kind of brought up, it's not like just having a player in the top 10 at every single position is the goal. The goal is to have players near the top in a couple of key positions, which the Seahawks also don't have that.
Okay.
But like, having 3 players right here, Gino probably will be on the list. Spoon will probably be on the list. All of those players are, aside from Julian Love,
they'll have an above average number because your average number of players in the top 100 by definition is 3.
And they're going to be at key positions, wide receiver, cornerback, and that should be heavier weighted. But
they
it's
will
not like
almost certainly not have anyone in the 50, in the top 50, or running back, which would be.
You don't think they'll have anybody I guarantee you Spoon's in the top 50.
Okay, that I'll bet you about.
All right, great. As long as we got to bet about something. Spoon's good. I'm telling you, he is one of the most beloved players in the entire NFL.
Should we bet a gochu doodle on it?
Sainthood.
who's, who's
If I
bestowing
win,
that?
this is my first miracle.
You've never won an official Peltoncast bet according to our record, so this would be a miracle. I agree.
Wait, what? I haven't.
There's not that many of them that I've recorded, but
the
they're
official
in
Peltoncast bets.
they're in the glossary, which you should also check out if you never have. I have here listed both from 2022 whether DK Metcalf will average enough yards per game for a 1,000 yard season in
He didn't?
2022.
Or he
fell
did?
he fell like a yard per game short.
It's kind
And
of
then
shocking to me.
Drew Lock will start by week 4 of the 2022 season. Was our other bet.
Ooh, that's it? Those are the only ones?
Those are the ones that are recorded officially.
Wow. It's almost like you only record the ones that I lose.
I just started doing it in 2022. I don't know if there was.
We went a
some
whole
before then.
year with no bets?
Yeah, we've not made one since then.
Wow, I'm so happy we are back, baby.
I mean, we've basically gone 2 years with no bets. Presumably, we made those by August 2022.
More bets. All fights, more bets.
Oh, I see. He had to average enough yards for 1,000 yard season in a 16 game season, and he had 1,000 yards, but it was not enough to do it in 16 games.
All right. That's the new motto for 2024 football season.
Either that or you actually won the bet and I recorded it wrong. I mean, either way, I was like right on the borderline.
More bets, less tracking of the bets.
Oh boy.
Pelton. All right, I'm hot to go play college football.
On that note,
Thanks for listening.
thanks.
We really ended that strong.
So many callbacks.
I wasn't sure there for a second, but we really pulled it together. I've been watching. I've been trying to watch the like rewatchables movies before they come out because I'm just like, well, if I'm playing college football, I might as well just have a movie on. And I'm watching No Way Out, starring Kevin Costner and Gene Hackman. Pretty
Okay.
excellent.
Oh, really? Huh.
I went to go see that Long Legs movie,
I heard there was a 1995 Mariners reference, right?
have you heard of this movie at all?
No.
It's like a trendy horror movie. This production company Neon, they're like the hot production company, and it has Nick Cage in it. It was like fine. I don't know. I feel like I was expecting it to be better just because of the hype. The dude who directed its dad played Norman Bates though in Psycho,
Hmm.
and his brother was a rockabilly artist who I remember sort of from like early to that Elvis Perkins. But at the beginning of the movie, the dude Blair Underwood or whatever, who's amazing, like he's the best part of the movie because he's in like a '90s cop movie and nobody else is.
Love it.
I love Blair Underwood, but like Blair Underwood's like, you a baseball fan to the like new rookie or whatever, and she's like, no, and he's like, I've got to talk about my magical Mariners, and he said that, and I feel like the whole theater was like, what? But then we find out later that it's 1995, and you're like, okay.
Did you know that Blair
like-
Underwood was born in Tacoma?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So Blair Underwood actually would have been a Mariners fan.
I don't know if he
probably-
would have been a Mariners fan. I don't know if he grew up there. His dad was in the Air
military.
Force
Okay.
or Army, I should say.
He's Giblin.
So yes,
I did not know that information about.
but
Blair
that was
Underwood.
before it was Giblin. At that point, it was just Fort Lewis.
Oh, there was no joint base. I had no idea when that happened.
Wait, you didn't know that was a thing?
I mean, I know that it's a joint base now, but like,
They
Where was-
merged in
where was
2010.
McCord?
I mean, it's where it currently exists.
Wait, so where's Fort Lewis?
They're just like right next to each other, but previously they were
They never
separate
considered
branches
joining.
of the army. I don't know if they considered it or not, but they did not join until 2010.
They were N Giblin before.
I'm good. I don't know how we got here, but I mean I do. But
Rival bases Lewis and McCord. I had never considered it. I feel like one day it just like I guess it just kind of occurred to me, but it's one of those things that I just assumed was the case all along.
Nope.
Like the Capulets and the Montagues, Lewis and McCord.
It's like wheels on suitcases. They never considered it.
Anyway, I'm happy to hear that Blair Underwood actually hypothetically could be a Mariners fan.
There you go.
I'm telling you, it was startling to people in the theater. It's just like in a horror movie, that was the most startling part of the entire thing. Like it was palpable that you could feel that people were like, did he just bring up the Mariners positively?
He was only
Anyway.
there for the first 3 months of his life. So there we
Mariners,
go.
Big Mariners fan. We didn't even talk about the UW baseball coach in his blog.
Oh, we'll have to save that for next week.
Oh my god. You'll never see this horror movie anyway.
That is true.
Have you ever seen a single movie that would be considered under the genre of horror? Even
No, probably not.
have you seen The Shining?
No.
That is. Are you going to? Is Grace into The Shining?
Probably.
It's like maybe the greatest movie of all time. So I feel like you should give it a watch.
I feel like I should be able to sleep at night.
You would be that scared?
It's not scared. It's just like it would haunt my dreams.
You think The Shining would? I
think
it's
movies a lot that are not horror movies haunt my dreams.
How often are your dreams haunted?
When I watch movies on a regular basis.
Really?
Yeah.
I watched a movie
I'm
called
very suggestible.
White House Down. You'd be like sweating bullets and be like, we must save President Jamie Foxx. I did not know. My dreams are so rarely haunted.
Consider yourself lucky.
Just by having to wake up at 7 a.m. to post about Enum Claw on Instagram.
I had a very specific dream about Tyus Jones's contract last night. Bobby Marks was giving me the details.
That's actually the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I woke up. He did not sign a contract.
You thought you were going to be prescient about it?
Yeah.
Wait, is Tyus Jones a free agent right now?
He is a free agent, yes.
That might also be a nightmare because you feel like you'd have to write about it or something.
I was at dinner and I was like, I don't want to write about this. I'm busy.
So you did have a horror dream about Tyus Jones's contract.
There you go. Tyus Jones haunted my dreams. And you think I'm going to be able to watch The Shining? I can't even watch The Wizards without them haunting my dreams.
Oh my god. Okay.
Go play college football.
I actually need to play college football. Yes.
Bye.
All right. Bye.